A relational database gave further refinements where it allows a link between any two tables. In this case, the category table all the way through to the ticket table is actually linked through a many-to-many relationship between the show entity. The show entity happens to be a many-to-many relationship between act and venue. The idea is to describe or explain how complex a relational database can actually get. This is a very simple one. Some relational databases can have upwards of 200 to 500 tables. They can get really quite insane and impossible to manage in many situations. Essentially, a relational database allows a link between any two tables, regardless of where in the hierarchy there is essentially a very loosely structured hierarchy. You can access any table without access to the parent. So this guy can actually look at acts and he can look at venues, but he doesn't have to access the show table or the supporting act to access those two objects. Similarly, this user down here can access categories or supporting acts directly without having to search from a root node through other objects. What is a relational database? A relational database is actually two-dimensional as it contains tables and rows. These things you see here are tables. Within each table, you store, for instance, an act ID and a name. So every actor in this act table will actually have a unique identifier and the actor's name. Joe, Jim, Eric, etc. 3 rows, Joe, Jim, Eric, stored within the act table. So you have a table is one dimension, and then the row is the second dimension. Relational database structures are loosely linked. What this means is that there is unrestricted access to entities from outside. You can get to any entity from the outside. The most important factor of relational database structure is that it attempts to remove the duplication of data in much the way that hierarchical and network databases do. Removal of duplication by creating hierarchical structures, in other words, many objects within one and then many within one. You take the many out of the parent so you don't duplicate all the child elements for every parent. The relational database structure does this in a much more efficient, logical, and mathematical manner. It's much more effective than hierarchical and network database structures. That's the very basics of a relational database.